Do you guys know what the JET program is? The JET program is how I came to Japan. It stands for Japan. It's not what you think it is. Japan Exchange and Teaching. The JET program is how I came to Japan. You apply while you're in the US, and then you go through this whole process where you do this rather rigorous application, and then you get a reply if you're like getting an interview or not. You do an interview, you get a rejection or acceptance, or sometimes you get waitlisted or whatever. I was accepted. They place you some random place in Japan. You can request anywhere in Japan you want. They will hardly ever give you where you want. You just get like a random kind of placement depending on where they need you. Maybe they have like a certain request in some areas. They're like, we need somebody who has like lived somewhere rural before. So they'll choose somebody from like a smaller town, just wherever they needed extra people. And you get paid to be an ALT, which is an assistant language teacher. So it means you are not teaching a class alone, because you can have any degree to teach in Japan, right? Which means that you are not actually qualified to be like a teacher. You're there to kind of be a cultural exchange. Because here's the thing, right? You teach English sometimes, but I think the bigger goal of JET, at least from my understanding in the orientations, is to expose Japanese children to people who are not from Japan. It's more about the exchange. That's why it's called Japan Exchange and Teaching, because they need exposure, especially on some of these smaller islands and stuff. Like, they've seen like 3 white people, maybe. There were some children on our island. There were some babies where I was like, oh my God, we're like the first Americans they've like ever seen, and probably are going to see for the next like 10 years. My thing about the JET program, because a lot of people ask me, should I apply for the JET program? Should I do the JET program? It's a gamble. You're pulling that slot machine every time. Are you gonna get a really good place? Here's the thing. What do you mean by good place too? You could theoretically be placed in Tokyo, like the big city here, but is that even a good placement? Because the cost of living is rather high, and Tokyo Jets have to find their own housing before even living in Japan. They have to find their own apartments. Pretty crazy, right? You could also be placed somewhere incredibly rural. I'm talking like there's a ferry a day to get there and back, or maybe 1 train. There's even a placement out on an island that's like a 24-hour boat ride from Tokyo. And technically it's part of Tokyo under the jurisdiction of Tokyo Prefecture, which is crazy. The problem with JET, right, essentially at its core, is that there is no standardization besides like the salary. I don't know whether or not you should do it, because I have no idea, and you will have no idea until like a few days before you end up going there. Sometimes you won't even know until you are on the train to the place you've been assigned what it's going to be like. That is one thing I do not like about the JET program. There's this like saying in the community, every situation is different. It shouldn't be that different. It's a job. It should not be that different. The fact that some people I knew got summers off from their school or got to do remote work, and then other people having to pay $50 a week in gas because they were assigned a school like way out in the booty, probably even more than $50, frankly, like $100, because they like only had housing in this one town, but they need them to commute to this other town. So the fact that like that can happen in the program and there's no standardization is crazy to me. I will say, since I did JET, they have raised the salary. I think it's like 4 million yen a year now. It is also one of the best programs in terms of like, I want to come over to Japan and teach English. There's a lot of bad companies out there. I won't be naming them, but pretty much anyone you can Google is not going to be good. Some of the most infamous companies in Japan for being so-called black companies, like bad business practices, because they pay incredibly low wages. They usually force you into like company housing. Sometimes they won't even pay for your health insurance and stuff. JET is better in that respect. And you will be making like a salary that is standardized by the JET program because it's a government program. These other programs are like private companies who have like bid on government bids to be able to like have the contracts in certain prefectures and stuff. Whereas the JET program is like a federal kind of level, like a bigger government level.
They can make you pay them if you're late or don't show up.
When I've talked before about like sketchy companies in Japan, I was specifically referencing like some of the shadiest practices about like not letting you quit, being really shady in interviews and like not telling you the salary, stuff like that, or telling you you're gonna do overtime like from the get-go, that it won't be part of your contract. Those are typically like English companies, unfortunately. Really not great. So the JET program, in terms of like paying more, having health insurance, you get pension set up for you by your Board of Education, which is great, actually. I think that's great. However, once you are finished with your training in Tokyo, which is not very good training, mind you, everything else for most jets is up to their Board of Education. Your standard of living, everything like that. And that's where things get shady. I still have the Jet subreddit and the horror stories I see on there. Back up a little bit. My experience, I loved my school. I liked being an English teacher at my school. I thought my school was amazing. It wasn't my school that I had beef with, like at all. I never want that to be like miscommunicated. The issue actually was my Board of Education and like the bigger, like broader standardization issues of JET. Board of Educations get really intensely bureaucratic, underfunded, understaffed. They really don't have like the resources to be handling you as like foreign teachers. And there are some really good Board of Educations out there, but that was the problem, because you couldn't help but compare like your situation to the people literally a town over. Would get like 20 vacation days a year. And mine, it was like 10. If you ever got sick, they expected you to use your vacation days for those days, which is crazy. Whereas the town over, they'd be like, oh yeah, like we get unlimited sick leave and we get unlimited summer holiday or whatever. It really irked me. The main problem was that you couldn't help but see the people doing better or worse. Why is there not more standardization in how I'm being treated? If you have the same qualifications, you got into the same program, why does one person have it so much better? Somebody can be put up in like a really nice apartment and their Board of Education could pay for the entire thing for them. And somebody else could be put up in like an absolute shithole, like really truly bad, like an apartment from like the 50s with like cockroaches, and they would have to pay like $500 a month. That's the way it would be. Things don't change like bureaucratically very often. It would take a lot of pull and a lot of effort to make things better. Once you get to that like Board of Education level, more local level, things just fly out the window in terms of like how you're going to be treated as an employee. And some of the ways that they would treat you, I cannot imagine treating an exchange teacher like that in the United States. I cannot imagine. I would be so embarrassed. At least in my Board of Education, there wasn't a lot of ability to be flexible with like the fact that these were people coming from another culture, not just the United States, like Canada and the UK. Instead of embracing the exchange element, you're adapting to our culture, we will also like put in our effort to also learn more about your culture and your expected work environments. Like that's the whole point, right? Is you're coming over to kind of teach about your culture and this Western Eastern friendship and how things can be better. I don't know. Ideally, too idealistically, honestly, I will say this about any job here, except for maybe like the really high up ones like Google and Amazon, they expect you to assimilate. Like Japan is one of the countries that you have to assimilate if you want to stay here long term, I think. Getting in is like half the battle. From then on out, it's even harder because you just don't know what environment you're gonna end up being in and how long. Like they can just move you to different schools. Like something that was crazy that was gonna happen to one of the other teachers while we were like in the same Board of Education is that they were gonna force her to go to like one extra school. She already had like 5 schools she had to like go to every week, and they were like, yeah, also we're gonna add an extra one on, so you have to leave midday your first school to go during lunch to the second school, which I just think that's so inappropriate to like have them change halfway through the school year to doing that. Like 5 schools driving, and some of these Board of Educations would force you to pay for your own gas. And at my school, it was even more traditional. My school and my Board of Education, like there was a lot of stuff I had to learn very quickly about how Japanese work environments are, because any sort of like city job or federal job, It is very old school, very conservative, like Japanese work culture. So for the most part, that's what also made me so mad, because some people would tell me like, oh yeah, my school is so chill. They like let me leave after lunch. And I was like, that's so crazy.
And at the end of the day, it's probably mostly just underfunding and understaffing.
I think it's just part of Japanese culture too, especially like in a city office like that, where they have like kind of an older work culture.
Chair reveal. Let's go. Hey, what do we think?
What do we think?
There's a bunch of things missing. It's kind of scary. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye guys.
Yeah.
Bye.